let me start by asking how this Greenback project start.
In Germany, you have something called extended producer responsibility, where everybody that puts packaging into the market is responsible for making sure that that packaging is collected, washed, sorted, and made into something new. Hopefully packaging, but with mechanical recycling, that's not always the case. And over the next 4 or 5 years, I noticed that a lot of people were cheating in the German market, but also in the English market. And most of the cheating was happening with people that were taking flexible waste and exporting it to China, to other jurisdictions, where they could basically get a stamp where it would say that material was received and it will be recycled, take that stamp back to Germany and then prove to the client it was recycled. And I was getting increasingly concerned that we were telling our clients we are recycling this stuff, whereas another 40% of the material was actually going into waste to energy. Now, for me, waste to energy is an inferior solution to actually recycling the material. I started looking for a technology that was a distributed and decentralized technology where you could put it right next to where the waste would arrive anyway, whether that's a MRF in developed countries or whether that's a landfill in developing countries, where the permitting process could be short and the investment that you needed to make would be small enough to make it worthwhile, and where you could roll out the technology relatively quickly so that you would get to the same total capacity. I also knew that I would have to be able to finance the input, in other words, buy the waste from people, because there are no incentives for anybody to pick up that flexible plastic, and B, provide evidence that the oil that we produce comes from a recycled background or provenance. Okay, so that is the idea of Greenback that was born in 2018, because now we had a technology that was good enough to work on in order to make it into a real plastic pyrolysis technology. And you also had the advent of the blockchain as a supply chain management tool, IoT, Internet of Things, in order to provide the evidence. So it all came together during that time.
What are the key components for the audience of the Greenback project?
Well, the Greenback project actually starts before we get involved, which is there are many people, both in the developed world as in the developing world, that live from the collection of waste. In the developed world, it's the big companies, Veolia, Remondis, and Suez, and so on and so forth. In the developing world, it is very often, small family businesses that have a truck or have a cart, or sometimes individuals that go around, the houses and they do the municipal pickup. Very few times the municipality actually has its own pickup system. But that is okay, because those people live from the valuable waste that people throw away. And that valuable waste, probably about 50% of household waste, excluding organics, is valuable. The PET, the high density polyethylene, the polypropylene, and so on. So in many developing countries, you have already a very basic but very efficient infrastructure for sorting. Okay, but you have no outlet for the biggest problem of them all, which is the flexible packaging that you have. Right. So we start by basically allowing people to sell that material, to collect it and then sell it to us, in the knowledge that they will get paid on the quality of the material that they give us, where we buy the plastic, and then when we put it into our pyrolysis machine in order to then get oil out of it, which we then in turn sell to a petrochemical company that uses that oil as part of their supply of oils, mostly fossil, to make new chemicals and new plastic out of it, right? And then they sell it on to a converter or to a packaging company, who then makes a new packaging out of it. And we have the ability, not yet the contracts, but the ability to trace the material throughout our process that we already do, but then we could also trace it all the way back to where it becomes a new package, or at least part of it becomes a new package.
Okay, great. Then moving on to the other kind of core technologies that the Greenback project has, which is this Eco2 Veritas that you already showed us, basically ensuring the transparency of how the materials are being converted to pyrolysis oil, etc. Can you tell us a little bit more about this platform?
It's a very interesting take on what you can do with a bunch of different technologies, IoT, blockchain, vision. And what we do is, we basically put them all together. I would know, if I follow it throughout the process, is that this oil comes from that plastic, which I've been able to trace. So we do exactly the same. We replace the human, me, with machine, and the machine uses all of these different technologies. So we basically create, if you like, the evidence that this product actually comes from this amount of plastic. You need lots of different sources of evidence. And now the petrochemical company and our clients know that, if we produce 1,000 tons of oil, we have the evidence for 1,000 tons of input for that oil. We have the evidence so that they can prove that no one has put fossil naphtha into the mix, so that they're only paying for pyrolysis oil, not for a mixture of fossil and pyrolysis or, any other type of oil. You put it on the blockchain and then no one can change it. So that, when Nestle gets proof that, for example, it's neutralized, no one else can claim that particular ton of plastic.
So switching gear a little bit, and then to talk about the AEPW's involvement. So how did AEPW get involved in this project in the first place?
When the Alliance first started, we put out a number of RFPs for different parts of the value chain, including one around advanced recovery and recycling. And through that, Greenback made an application for funding. So it was part of our pipeline fill that we became familiar with Greenback. And then I would say when we look at that suite of opportunities, Greenback brought to the table a number of advantages, certainly around, we look at the partner being a key element of a successful project, and Philippe and his team are obviously well experienced in the business and understand the waste business, probably more than just about any other company we've dealt with. The technology has been running since 2015, Philippe, at a demonstration plant. So it was, you could go and see and touch, and I would say from there, then there's the risk involved, and as Philippe mentioned, the units are small, relatively small modular units, and so the capital outlay for a particular unit is relatively small. So when we looked at that, it looked to us in our context of supporting and de-risking new business ideas that are ready to go to scale, that this fit in that mandate of the Alliance.
So what kind of support has been provided so far to the project from the Alliance?
A lot. A lot. Very, very helpful. And I can only say that it's not just the money they gave us, it's also the validation that it provided us with other investors. And when we speak to investors that don't have the technical knowledge that Mark or his colleagues bring to the table, it's been invaluable because they may hear from me that it's a good technology and worth investing, But when the AEPW comes in and puts their stamp on what we do, it is game changing. So it's been very, very valuable to us.
I would say that replication capability is also a key element that we look for in our investments, and the vision that Philippe and his team have, as well as the inherent ability of that technology to be deployed just about anywhere in the world, is again something that brings value to us as the alliance.
So if this facility proves to be effective and successful, is there a plan to replicate a similar facility near the MRF in other locations? Is that the idea?
We're already doing that. We're already in the final stages of signing with a very large packaging company to put 2 modules next to their MRF for a circular project where we're also working with a petrochemical company, so that the packaging company that will then own those 2 modules will be able to offer, packaging with recycled content, fully certified, to their clients. We have a lot of interest, a full pipeline really, of plants that we could deploy. We recently printed the first certificate for oil that we produce with full evidence and sold it to Nestle. That is the most satisfying so far. And it took 4 years to get that.
Right. And what does Nestle say about what you have been able to do?
I think they're very happy. Nestle, they are the number 1 food producer in the world, and obviously they also have some other, sort of business lines, water and so on. But in terms of flexible packaging, they're probably one of the largest users. So it's not just healthy; it's also comes with a clean bill of health in terms of the environmental impact, and that is something that not just Nestle but all of the CEOs of the large consumer products groups have committed themselves to. And Nestle for us has been the first in our little world that has committed to actually putting their money where their mouth is, and has given us a large neutralization contract, which then allowed us to build the first plant in fulfillment of that neutralization contract. It's difficult for others not to follow, and they may not follow with us. They may follow with a different provider, different technology, but at least it gets the industry going, and it gets a solution for flexible waste going.
So the last question. So what are the future plans for the Greenback?
Well, I mean, in the ideal scenario, we would be able to raise money relatively quickly to build our team, which will then enable us to build the conveyor belt that replicates what we've done in Cuautla. And we have, the backing of the AEPW, and we have a couple of new projects where we sold plants. We just need to find the capital to keep us going. So once we do that, then we have a rollout where we get to about 1,000, basically, 1,000 tons of, kilotons, I should say, sorry, a lot of plastic that we will be able to recycle with about 350 modules over the next 10 years that we want to build. So if you imagine the module that you've seen there, building 350 of those and deploying them shouldn't be impossible. It is a challenge, but we need to find the right financing for it.
Great. Thank you so much. Is there anything from Mark and side and the Philip side that you want to say but you haven't to the audience of this webinar?
First of all, I would say use less flexible plastic if you can, because there's lots of it. And I know that the Japanese people are great aesthetically. It's wonderful, but there is a little bit too much packaging.
Yes.
But if you're going to use that packaging, make sure that there is extended producer responsibility, even if it's voluntary, where the companies that sell all these beautiful goods also make themselves responsible for making sure that, you know, there is a cycle for it rather than an end to it.
Yeah, from the Alliance perspective, you know, one of the biggest challenges we see is that partnership across the value chain, such as what Greenback and Nestle, as one example, has done. And we need to see more of that kind of opportunity. And we're hoping through our investment in Greenback and other technologies and other business models that we can help demonstrate that it is a good, solid business model and help enable the value chain players, the consumer goods companies, the technology providers to come together, because ultimately they need to work together, and that's how ultimately we will fund that, whether it's through a regulated system like an extended producer responsibility, or like in Mexico where Nestle has stepped up on a voluntary basis to provide that that type of funding and contributing to the business model to make recycling work.
Right. Great. Well, thank you so much for getting up so early for this interview. I really appreciate